Hello guys, as you can see we've got a new balance patch for the June season. I thought I'd take you through my thoughts on this balance patch. So this will be from a perspective of sort of upper Tiberium League. So this is mostly going to be focused on that metagame rather than any other. Okay, so bug fix, yep, sure, that's great. For those who didn't know, if you were donating Fanatics, you'd still get credits and lose a Fanatic card, but the person you donate to did not get a Fanatic card. So that has now been changed and fixed, which is good. First change, APC is a dominant force. This change is to make them less like an immovable wall. Um, it's not a huge nerf, it's like a 5%, slightly more than 5% hit point nerf. I don't think the APC really needed a nerf, but the APC deck has been very strong. I don't think this will make a huge difference, honestly. But honestly, like an APC's job is to be an immovable wall. So if it stops doing that, then it becomes a pretty useless unit. So we'll have to wait and see how this shakes out. I don't think this is going to matter too much. I think 3,300 is still a huge hit point pool, and you still get the missile squad afterwards. I think this is still going to be exactly the same as before. Disruptor base damage has been reduced. Yep, that's obviously good. Disruptor was outrageous. I've made a few videos where I destroy people's base with disruptors. Two-shotting half of their base with a Jackson boost takes like 5 seconds or less. It's insane. So this seems like a reasonable change. Drone Swarm. This one I want to talk about a little bit. So this, I think, is one of the most powerful units in the game right now. I think Drone Swarm is absolutely outrageous. This change says it makes it easier to kill by units such as Rhino and Buggy, but Rhino does 80 damage and Buggy does 76. And for those of you who don't want to do the math yourself, 3 Buggy shots is 228, so used to kill a drone. 2 Buggy shots is 152, so that's right, you guessed it. It takes exactly the same number of shots from a Buggy. The Rhino is 80, so 2 times 80 is 160. As you can see, 175 is more than 160, and 200 the old number, so it used to take 3 shots and it now takes 3 shots. So this makes no difference to the Rhino and the Buggy. This is, I don't know why they've said this makes Drone Swarm a bit easier to kill by units such as Rhino and Buggy. The only thing this will change is that now if you have a higher level Rhino or Buggy, you'll need less of a level advantage to two-shot a Drone Swarm than you did previously. At equal levels, this will make no difference. It'll take 3 shots still, as it did before. So this will have almost no impact on the metagame whatsoever. I can only imagine, I don't know if this is to try and get people to try and use Rhino and Buggy against Drone Swarm, because honestly, Rhino and Buggy are quite good against Drone Swarm anyway. Maybe they're hoping people try them now and go, oh wow, we can beat Drone Swarm with Rhino and Buggy. I don't know. This nerf to Drone Swarm, I believe, will make no difference to the metagame whatsoever. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't think there's any unit that's actually impacted by this. The only things that didn't one-shot a Drone Swarm are the Rhino and the Buggy, and as I've already said, they're still going to free-shot them instead of two-shotting them, so I don't believe that change will make any difference whatsoever. Okay, Grenadiers. Grenadiers aren't quite the level we would like just yet. Instead of increasing their combat power, we put a bit more emphasis on what makes them special. So the EMPs have been increased. This is a great change. I would have liked to see the duration of the EMP increased. That really would have been my ideal route to go down with this one, because it feels like a vehicle can sort of, like, the duration of the EMP isn't long enough to, like, really lock a vehicle down. It can just still drive away from you. But this is the direction I like them going in with this change. I will say that one of the biggest problems with Grenadiers, though, is that they die very quickly to their counters. That was the biggest issue with them, was that they can never actually catch a vehicle, because an opponent can simply drive away and then kill them with something like a rifleman or a militant or a drone swarm. And this change has not addressed that at all. So I think, I haven't tried them enough yet, but I think Grenadiers will still be terrible. I still wouldn't recommend them. I don't think this change will make enough of a difference, but it is the direction I'd like to see them go in. Unless they're going to give them more hit points. But I don't want them to just be carbon copy of Mutant Marauder, so we'll have to wait and see. Okay, Hammerhead has fallen off in recent patches. We're giving it quality of life change as well as making it more accessible. Turn speed has been doubled, cost lowered to 90. These seem like good changes. Hammerhead is really bad at the moment. It just, I don't know, it's hard to explain why. I think it's because there's so many stealth tanks and bikes and pit bulls in the metagame, and stealth tanks one-shot hammerheads. So you spend 100 on your hammerhead and your opponent gets to kill it with a stealth tank, they immediately make back the cost of their stealth tank. That really sucks. There also hasn't really been that many standing and fighting air units you want to kill with a Hammerhead. The main one is normally Banshee, but Banshee loses to Pitbull. In the days when Pitbull struggled against Banshees, you would often see people using Hammerheads as their answer instead. But at the moment, Pitbulls just beat Banshees anyway, so you don't need a Hammerhead. This is obviously a good change, like the Hammerhead is bad, and this is a buff to it. I don't think it'll see that much play in the meta still, but if we do see a true GDI air deck arise, which doesn't play a Pitbull, which seems very unlikely because Pitbull is so absurd that pretty much all GDI plays Pitbull, there is a chance that we will see the Hammerhead as a part of that deck. And this also will make the tech deck slightly better because they do want a super high cost, high powered anti-air unit to protect their tech units. And the Hammerhead, this is now cheaper, so that will help them. I still don't see the Hammerhead being a huge force in the metagame unless we really move towards an air-heavy meta, which is possible, especially with the things like the Kodiak buff and the Venom buff. We might see a lot more air units and then Hammerhead might come back, but it won't be because of this buff. If Hammerhead comes back, it'll be simply because the metagame has changed to a point where Hammerhead is good. It won't be because Hammerhead got a buff. It'll just be because the metagame switches to where you actually want to play a Hammerhead. Okay, Jump Jet Troopers. So I like this change. They're basically saying that Jump Jets used to be the tier 2 anti-vehicle unit in the barracks, and now Grenadiers do that. So we want Jump Jets to be like in between. I like the idea of this. I don't know how much the change is going to affect them. I think that it'll be quite good. The damage reduction is quite small, so hopefully that shouldn't make too much difference to their damage. The cost decrease is quite a big deal. 50 down to 40 is actually quite a big deal. I mean, that's a 20% cost reduction, so that's quite a big deal. The health decrease is quite big as well, but Jump Jets have always been quite squishy, so I don't know how much this matters. I haven't really gone through the breakpoints to know how much this will affect their matchups, but generally if a Jump Jet Trooper starts getting shot by its counter, it goes down pretty quickly anyway. So the only thing this might do is mean it does worse against the things it's supposed to kill. Like, Jump Jets might struggle a bit more against tanks now, because tanks are going to shoot them and they're going to die quicker than they did before. But I think tanks do 92 to infantry, so I actually don't think it'll matter. It'll still just be 3 shots from a tank. So yeah, I think this will make the Jump Jets slightly better. Jump Jets were already quite good. They were a fine unit anyway, so this is probably just a buff to them. I think we'll see a little bit more Jump Jets around. Okay, Kodiak has Raider. This is insane. I don't know what this is absolutely crazy. At the moment, this is currently bugged, and the side turrets don't fire properly. Because there is there's like a weird bug where, yeah, the side turrets only fire if the front turret fires first. It's very strange. But that will be fixed at some point, and then I expect the Kodiak to be absolutely disgusting. This is gonna be such a scary unit. Kodiak is already a terrifying unit. It's so heavy, has so many hit points. It's so hard to kill this thing, and if it can drive around and shoot, if it can fire all of its guns whilst moving as well, you're going to be able to move this thing forward and have a 3-tile radius in front of you that you just destroy with Kodiak. It's going to be absolutely great. It's going to be absolutely insane, especially if the different guns have different cooldowns. So it can fire like all 3 of them at the same rate as it normally fires. It's only its front cannon. This could be absolutely ridiculous. I'll have to wait and see when the bug is fixed, but I'm not looking forward to this one. I think Kodiak could actually be disgusting, which is another reason that Hammerhead might come back. But yeah, I don't like this change. I think this is going to be too much. But we'll have to wait until the bug has been fixed, because currently it just doesn't fire. Like 90% of the time when you're moving, it just refuses to fire, even if something is in front of it. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that one looks after the bug is fixed, but I think this is going to be insane. Okay, Mammoth Tank, training issue against Avatar. So when they say training issue, this means that the only matchup this affects is against the Avatar. And the only time it affects it is when there's a level difference of some kind. So this is not a relevant change. Don't get excited about this. This doesn't make any difference to any other matchup normally. Anti-air attack delay reduced to 0. This is fine. I mean, it'll make almost no difference. The anti-air on the Mammoth Tank is terrible anyway, so this is basically a non-change. Like, I wouldn't worry about this. This basically does nothing. Returning power to the MLRS now. Alternatives such as Mutant Mortar and Grenadiers exist. Okay, so this is a bit of a cop-out on their explanation, I think. The MLRS never needed a nerf. The reason they nerfed it in the first place is because they were worried that tank nerfs were going to hit, and then everyone was going to just replace their Predator with an MLRS. That's not true, because the only reason to play an MLRS is if your opponent is playing lots of tanks. That's the thing it's best against, is ground vehicles. So the removal of, like, the reduction of tanks in the metagame simply made the MLRS worse on its own. You didn't need to also nerf it at the same time. So this was a nonsense nerf in the first place. They finally reverted that nerf, thank God. This thing might be playable again, but in the current metagame, there's a lot of orcas, and like they say, things like Mutant Marauder and Grenadiers exist, so I'm not hopeful for the return of the MLRS. But GDI, I mean, Nod does play a quite a ground vehicle-based game plan in high Tib at the moment. Nod aggro is mostly a Scorpion bike wheel deck. So we could see the MLRS come back as a counter to that. If you play the MLRS, that's another reason to increase play in the Hammerhead, because you want something that really, really, really kills air quickly. Like a pit, you can't run around a Pitbull very slowly and hope that it'll kill off the Banshee before you lose your MLRS. You need a real powerhouse. So we might see the return of the Hammerhead based on that as well. It's going to be difficult to say because it's going to be so bad against GDI is the problem. Because GDI is playing Orca and Orca Bomber, which this unit is absolutely horrible against. So yeah, I'm not hopeful for it, but to fight Nod, you might see more MLRSs if people can figure out a deck that doesn't then lose to Orcas. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay, Mohawk buff. So this is quite a big buff to the attack speed, and it also now has Raider. So this, again, I've been informed the Raider is a little sketchy and a little buggy. There's something going on with the Mohawk where it still has an initial attack delay, I believe. So even though it has Raider, it has a delay on its initial attack, which means that it has to be lined up for it to shoot. Because of this, yeah, it has like a 0.25 second initial charge up time according to the stat sheet. This means it has to be lined up for at least a quarter of a second before it can fire. So this is going to mean it's almost impossible to get it to effectively Raider, because you have to line it up and it can only shoot from the left, and it has to line up for a quarter of a second before it'll fire. So the Raider's a little bit buggy on this one as well. I think they're going to fix that, and we'll have to see how it looks after that. But the biggest problem with the Mohawk has always been Stealth Tank. Stealth Tank's one-shot Mohawks. That's always been the issue with Mohawk. The Mohawk gunship was a pretty powerful unit before Stealth Tanks got buffed. When Stealth Tanks didn't see much play, Mohawks saw way more play. So the attack speed increase, I think, is too much. This unit was already good, and now it's going to be very good, except Stealth Tanks shut it down. So if Stealth Tanks are gone from the meta, which might happen because they did get a nerf this patch, then Mohawk is already good just on the back of that and doesn't need the buff. So Mohawk will either be completely unplayable still, if Stealth Tanks are still around, or it'll be really, really good if Stealth Tanks disappear from the metagame, which is another reason we might see the return of the Hammerhead and the Phantom. But we'll have to wait and see if Stealth Tanks are still good enough. And if they are, then I don't expect to see the Mohawk come back. It's never been the stats. The stats have never been the problem on the Mohawk. It's just the fact that it loses to Stealth Tank. So I guess the hit points has been an issue, so the stats have kind of been an issue, but like increasing its attack speed, I don't think will make that much difference. But again, it has Raider now. Raider is insane. So if they fix the Raider so it Raiders effectively, this could be a gross unit. It could be absolutely terrifying. Alright, Sandstorm. Fix an issue where Sandstorm was winning into certain infantry counters. So its damage versus infantry has been reduced by 33%. That's a huge nerf. Sandstorm was only really scary when it was over-leveled anyway. Equal level Sandstorm, I think, wasn't that good a unit. So this is just basically nerfed the Whale Sandstorm. Like the level 15 Sandstorm is now going to be worse than it was against lasers and missiles. But it can hover over lakes. This is a very random change. This is going to benefit the Sandstorm a lot on certain maps, like Canal Row, where there's a lake between the bottom pads. I can't think of any others off the top of my head right now, but any map where there's a lake, Sandstorm now just gets a random buff. I don't really like that very much. Very odd change, but whatever. I guess it's thematic. Chatterer can now hover over lakes. Again, same thing. Random buff on certain maps. Slingshot can hover over lakes. Random buff on certain maps. Also, Slingshot speed increased to fast. It was average. Really good change. The Slingshot is basically irrelevant because the Pitbull dominates it. There's no reason to play a Slingshot when the Pitbull does the same job of killing air, whilst also being able to shoot down, and has Raider, which is absurd. Raider is the most powerful ability in the game. So this thing getting increased speed is great. It was pretty bad. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better now, but I wouldn't hold out too much hope. The fact is it still struggles. It still just dies to like an Orca or a Borka, especially if they have Jackson boost. So we'll have to wait and see, but this is obviously a good direction to go in. Slingshot could do with a little bit more help. Snipers attack speed will allow them to take the grenadiers and mutant marauders in a reasonable amount of time. So this seems interesting. The problem with snipers isn't their low damage. It never has been. They always have been amazing at killing infantry. The problem with snipers is they have no hit points, and at some point in the game, you have to put units on pads to control the nuclear missile. And when you reach that stage of the game, the sniper is not a very useful unit because it has to sit on a pad and then it has to tank something. And quite often in those scenarios, your Nod opponent will send a wheel squadron and it will chew up the snipers, or your GDI opponent send a drone swarm and it will chew up the snipers. Snipers are good if you can put them in a cluster with pit bulls and dogs and other units that protect them. So they've always been good on maps where you can do that, and they've always been terrible on maps where you can't. And this is going to make no difference to that. Like they were already good in certain scenarios, and they're just bad in others. And fundamentally, the way the unit works, that's never going to change. They used to have more hit points in the beta, and there was a very heavy sniper meta for a while, because they actually would survive attacking units for a little while, and you could actually protect them with pit bulls during that time. But as long as they have these terrible hit points, I think they're always going to struggle. Because when it comes down to the firing of the missile, you've got to have something that can stand there and take a beating. Again, as I said, there are certain maps where snipers are fantastic. They will continue to be fantastic on those maps. But ladder play is often what determines what deck you want to pick up. And ladder play is largely on a random map from a pool. So unless the entire pool favors snipers, you're risking a lot by putting them in your deck. So this is another buff that's... I don't think snipers needed this buff. Yeah, I just think fundamentally the unit struggles in certain maps, and that's not going to change because they can attack faster. Okay, Titan has been a bit lackluster for several patches. We're brushing off the dust so players can pull it out a little earlier. Completely irrelevant change. The reason Titan is bad is because we're in an air meta, and because the Sandstorm was better. Like, the Sandstorm has just been a better unit. I say air meta, like the GDI air deck exists. People are playing Orca. Orca is like one of the most popular GDI units, as is Orca Bomber. Titan can't shoot those things, so I don't see Titan being that useful. That's the way it is. Like, Titan is... I don't think 20 cost... It obviously will move it a step in the right direction, but tech just inherently has issues in High Tiberium. Mostly that Double Harvester hurts your pop cap too much, and you just run out of units and you lose. And this is not going to change that, so whatever. War Dogs got 10% infantry buff, damage versus infantry buff. Sure. War Dogs, I'm pretty sure they still will lose. 2 dogs will still lose to a rifle and a missile if you focus the rifle and the missile on the same dog squadron. This is obviously better. They'll do more damage during that matchup, so it's a good change. War Dogs needed this help. They were a little lackluster, especially compared to Wheels. So, good change. I think War Dogs are already a fine unit. They're just not great. Like, they're a 10 cost unit. They don't have a big impact on the game. That's been their biggest issue. They make an excellent blocker for things like MGs and snipers. They'll continue to do that, and MLRS. Maybe now that MLRS is better, we'll see more dog MLRS decks. That's certainly possible. But yeah, this is a reasonable change. Can't complain with this. Okay, Nod. We're pleased to see artillery is finally seeing play. I am not that pleased because it is ridiculous. This unit is so frustrating. It just kills everything on the ground. You put an artillery protected by stealth tanks, and it's just impossible to kill. Like, the game is just over a lot of the time. So attacks per second reduced to 3.6 was 3.2. Pretty minor nerf. A good nerf. Artillery is egregious. Again though, artillery itself is not the problem. It's the boost commander. A lot of these super units, like with Avatar and Borka, the unit itself is often not a huge problem. It's the boost commander that goes with it. Actually, Borka is an issue on its own, but like Avatar, for example, was never an issue without Oksana, and Giga Cannon is not an issue without Oksana. But you give an MLRS was not an issue without Jackson, but you give them a boost and they're ridiculous, and artillery is exactly the same. I don't see this having a huge impact on how good artillery is. I have to try it out. I don't know how much 0.4 seconds is going to matter on its attacks, but I feel like once you get it set up and defended, it's still going to destroy everything. Okay, attack bikes. So damage versus vehicle has been increased by an absolutely minuscule amount, and health reduced by a minuscule amount. This is probably just to make them slightly weaker. It's fixing training issues, right? Yeah, these are non-changes. Don't look at these. These should only affect the matchups based on levels. So that's normally what I mean when they say training issues. So this shouldn't really make a difference. Damage versus Harvester decreased. Someone on the balance team absolutely hates Harvester rushing. That's clear at this point. They have increased Harvester health, reduced Jump Jet, Bike, and Jump Jet damage, and Mohawk damage, sorry, to Harvesters, and reduced the bounty. So someone on the balance team obviously gets rushed a lot and really hates it, because they just keep nerfing every viable rush. I think Bike rushing was already quite poor, now it's just even worse. Yeah, someone on the balance team really likes one Harvester play or two Harvester play and doesn't like Harvesters getting killed. So they've nerfed the final unit that could rush. Okay, so don't ever rush ever again is what the balance team is trying to tell you. Avatar's Flamethrower gets damage to deal... Okay, yeah, so this is basically, I think, Avatar was getting wrecked by Marauders pretty hard. You could stack up a couple of Marauders and take down Avatars pretty easily. So they obviously, that's a bit silly. Avatar's like super unit, it costs an insane amount. Reasonably good change. I never thought the Avatar was that broken anyway. The problem was simply that everyone was playing tanks, and Avatar was very, very good against ground units. Now that everyone is playing Orca, I think the Avatar, even if the Avatar was put back to its original stats, I think it wouldn't be that potent because everyone's playing Orca these days, or Borka. Like, people are playing counters to Avatar, which they weren't before. So I don't think the Avatar was the issue. I think people just weren't responding correctly to the Avatar. So, good change. Probably won't bring the Avatar back, but who knows? I mean, I don't think it will. Cyber Wheels. Cyber Wheels have been incredibly powerful. While we like its glass cannon design, want to be a bit hard to position and can swarm control pads be reduced to faster. So this is the same thing that happened to dogs. I think it's a great change. These things, if you change their stats, like the way they match up currently is about right. They cost 10. If they did any worse, they would just be unplayable. If they did any better, they would just be overpowered for their cost. So speed is the obvious thing to hit. I think this is a good change. It makes it harder to get 2v1s against missiles. If you open wheels, and your opponent opens missiles, it used to be quite easy to engineer a 2v1 with your cyber wheels because of how much faster your units were. That's going to be much harder to do now. So opening double missiles against cyber wheel opening is no longer going to be just like, you know, you don't have to do it. But if you do it, it's going to be easier to engineer the 2v2 that you want. So I think this is a great change. Cyber wheels were kind of broken. They were one of the best units in the game, so this seems like a fine change. I'm a little worried this is going to mean you need to play Militants, but Militants were good anyway, so maybe... We'll have to wait and see. Inferno back to 100. So Inferno I don't think ever needed a nerf to 110. The problem with Inferno is that it was weak to air, and the Phantom destroyed all air. So the Phantom was really the issue, not the Inferno. But the Inferno got nerfed because of that. I don't think we're going to see the Inferno deck come back. The Scorpion being 60 and the Inferno being 100 was one of the main reasons this deck was so good. Because you could kill the answers to Inferno on the ground with Scorpions very, very efficiently. Like if people massed Pitbulls, your Scorpions would kill them very cheap. It's a good change though. The Inferno could do with the help. So yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. Kane 130, no one cares. Kane is trash. Sorry to say it. I don't think a 10 cost reduction is going to make any difference. The problem with Kane is that in High Tiberium, everyone plays aggro, so you're never going to kill an expensive unit with the Kane. You're only going to kill like tanks as the most expensive thing. Most of the time you're going to need like 3 shots to kill a 30 cost bike or 3 shots to kill like a shock trooper squad. So I don't think this makes any difference. Kane is still going to be the worst commander in the game. Phantom, okay. Lowering Phantom's cost alongside Hammerhead as well as fixing training issues. So the damage makes no difference. This is just level-based things. Although that is quite, yeah, it says training issues, so this should be irrelevant to anything except level differences, and cost reduced to 100. That seems fine. Stealth Tank is so dominant right now that Phantom has really lost its place in the metagame. I do think the Phantom is a very, very powerful unit, so I'm not sure how this will go, but this might mean that Phantom is now an option you can play instead of Stealth Tank, whereas at the moment, everyone was just playing Stealth Tank all the time. Alright, the beefy boys are a little less beefy. A little bit disappointed they spelled boys with a Y instead of an I. Those of you who watch my channel will know they are the boys with an I. But whatever, I'll take it. I'm pretty glad they called them beefy boys still. Fixed training issues. Okay, so damage reduced. That must be a training issue thing. That shouldn't affect their matchups, so don't worry about it. Health decreased by 30. I mean, this is like less than 5% health nerf. They were super beefy. I think they're going to be roughly the same. I think these are going to be roughly the same. Also, we're still in the Drone Swarm meta. The Drone Swarm changes are completely irrelevant, so these things still get counted by Borka and by Drone Swarm, neither of which got effectively touched. The Drone Swarm nerf really doesn't do anything, as I described earlier, and Borka has not been changed at all. So I don't see these guys being completely dominant. If those units were to go away, the Mutant Marauder could become disgusting. But at the moment, they're just shut down so hard by the other broken units that... I mean, they're still good. There is a Marauder deck you can play on ladder. It's very good. I just don't think these guys are... I don't think this nerf is going to affect them much. They're still going to be just as good as they were, which is pretty good. So I would still recommend playing Mutant Marauders. We might see them pop up a little more, but as long as Drone Swarm is around, they really suffer with that unit. And Nod still doesn't have a good answer to Drone Swarm. Rockworm. Okay, so they've doubled its infantry damage. This could actually make the Rockworm scary. If the Rockworm can, like, it has AoE attack now. If it can two-shot a missile squad now... Let me check what missile squad hit points is. So missile squad hit point is... 220. So it can now two-shot a missile squad. That's kind of terrifying. It only takes 2 hits instead of 3 now to kill a missile squad. That is very scary. I don't think this will make the Rockworm playable, because the problem with the Rockworm is simply its insanely slow speed. That's always been its issue. Rather than the stats on it. It's just the speed is a problem. So, yeah, I don't think this will push it into the meta, but it certainly helps. And if Rockworm suddenly becomes playable, I would not be overly surprised, because its normal counter is like a missile or a laser squad. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's still a tech unit. Tech units have issues. This one's a slow one. Difficult for Rockworm to bring you back into the game. Although it does counter artillery. So if you're struggling with artillery, you can play Rockworm deck. But yeah, good change. Probably doesn't matter. Self-tank. Okay, so this is the big one. Self-tank is a very dominant unit at the moment. It's the reason that you can't play things like Mohawk and Hammerhead. Now that it's had a speed reduction and a health reduction. So the thing I'm most worried about with this stealth tank change is that you don't really have... This was like the best answer to Orca Bomber, and the Orca Bomber didn't get touched, and this makes it worse, because it's going to be harder to catch an Orca Bomber, and an Orca Bomber splash damage as it's running away from you is going to kill you quicker. So this is going to make stealth tanks less dominant against regular tanks. Scorpion will now 3-shot this thing, instead of sometimes 4-shotting it at equal levels. So we might see, and it's also easier to catch now, because it's faster. So we might see a lot less stealth tanks, which is a little worrying, because we might be moving into an Orca Bomber metagame. Because the Orca Bomber is a truly disgusting unit that has not been touched. And it goes well with Drone Swarm, which is another disgusting unit that the nerf does nothing to. So we might move into an Orca Bomber metagame. We might move into a more air-based metagame. Maybe people will start playing Phantom instead of Stealth Tank. We'll have to wait and see. But this is a huge nerf. I think we're going to see a lot less Stealth Tanks. This could even push Stealth Tank out of the metagame entirely. But it's too early to say on that one, so we'll have to wait and see. But this is probably the biggest nerf change in this entire patch note. Okay, Venom attack speed increased to 0.4 from 0.5. So this is a huge buff for the Venom. The Venom now easily 1v1s lasers and missiles and wins. It used to do that on defense. I think sometimes it struggled on offense to do it, depending on the positioning. But now it will crush them 1v1. So we could see Venoms come back pretty big. These guys have a lot of hit points. Venoms have like the same number of hit points as a Banshee. So they take a long time to kill with Pitbulls. This is going to be the answer. This is like the equivalent to the GDI Drone Swarm. We could definitely see Venoms coming back into the metagame here. Which I'm not super excited about, because they are super annoying. But that definitely could happen. Yeah. I'm not willing to say they will make a reappearance, because if the Pitbull didn't get changed at all, and the Pitbull does beat them once you stack up Pitbulls. But they are a scary unit, and they got a little bit scarier. So I think we could definitely see Venom come back, and that could shake up the metagame a little bit. But overall, my impression is that the main thing that's changed is Stealth Tank. I think the main thing we're going to see is the Drone Swarm deck is exactly the same. We're going to see Drone Swarm APC. That's still going to be an Orca. Those units didn't get touched, really. Like, this APC nerf is not particularly relevant. So that deck's going to be really, really good still. Hopefully Kodiak isn't totally broken when they fix its Raider. Same with Mohawk, but we'll have to wait and see. Because if they are broken, that's going to be depressing. And I think the Nod aggro deck got some pretty big hits. Like, the changes to Cyberwheel Speed and Stealth Tank, those are pretty savage. So we might see GDI being the more powerful faction now. Alright guys, so that's my thoughts on this balance patch. And don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. And what do you guys think is going to change? Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this balance patch. Alright, thank you guys. I'll see you next time.